Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Shard knife by Kansept Knives. First off though, full disclosure, this guy was sent to me directly by Kansept. I've told them as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly, might be a gem, might be junk. They still sent it along. We do have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature of my review, but nonetheless, there you go, full disclosure. Next thing, size comparison. This is a moderately sized knife here. We put it up next to the PM2, put it up next to the Spyderco Delica, and we can put it up next to the Rat number 2, and we see here, nice reasonable size, kind of right there in the middle there. Where the heck is my ruler? I know it's around here, so here we are. Yeah, we'll do a quick blade length measurement. We see we come in here right around 3.5 inches there. So, there you go. Next thing, what the heck is Kansept Knives? Well, that's their logo there, and it's spelled K-A-N-S-E-P-T. Kansept. Kansept, I don't know exactly how this is supposed to be pronounced, but it's a new company, and that was founded at least, or at least one of the founding people is Kim Ning, who is a designer who did a lot of work for Kaiser, as well as some of the other folks from Kaiser, I gather, are now working for Kansept. And so, yeah, they are a new company, but using some people who've been around the knife world for a while there. Then finally, this particular knife, the Shard here, actually has a bunch of variants out there. This is a variant with Timascus inlays in there, and it goes for $299. There's also a carbon fiber version with a Timascus clip like this for $230, and then there's a plain carbon fiber inlay version at $200. And then finally, what is this material? This is called a Timascus, or a titanium Damascus. I'll go ahead and I'll kind of clean it up a little bit, so you can really get a sense of what it looks like here. But this is what happens when you take multiple grades of titanium and then you forge them together, basically, such that you end up with cool-looking patterns like this, and you end up, more importantly, with, when you anodize them, enough differentiation there that you get some interesting patterning in the materials. Think about it as the same basic principle underlying a Damascus-style steel, like in this Protec Malibu here, but applied to titanium. So that's what we got going on here, and that's a very interesting material. And in fact, you can see, although there's not much depth to this particular inlay, you can actually see that if you look on the side of the clip there, you can see that same pattern kind of showing through. So it is a three-dimensional sort of thing. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting knife. So on the good side, to start with, the clip on this guy is good. It works. And actually, that's not nothing, because Timascus clips tend to, in my experience, be a little less forgiving. It's a little trickier to make a good Timascus clip, at least in my experience dealing with a lot of Timascus clips. Very often they tend to be a little bit too stiff, for instance, whereas this one is really dialed in, so I appreciate that. Next thing, blade on this guy. This is an S35 VN blade, and it is, reasonably well done. It comes down to a reasonably thin edge, not the thinnest thing ever, but it definitely comes down to a nice edge there. It has a nice sort of machine grind on it there. And it's a reasonably solid blade shape with a reverse tanto, some flat, some belly, nice tip on there. It's a good blade, no argument there. Next thing, design-wise, I think this is actually a pretty nice design. It is reasonably, and I'm just going to keep doing that because I think it just makes the Timascus look prettier, but that is definitely something you want to keep in mind. But it's a nice design. It's got some nice lines to it. I think this is kind of all of Kim Ning's work that I've seen, so to speak, out in public. This is probably my favorite of the pieces, right? It's pretty good. It's not derivative of anything particularly, but it has very nice lines to it. It's got, yeah, I like it. I think it's a cool-looking design. Next thing, fit and finish-wise, this is pretty damn good. In fact, there were a number of nice things here. You can see there's a full lock bar insert here with an over-travel stop, which is good. All of the various parts are nicely fit together. You get good centering out here. You get the clip is in there with no play to either side. I mean, anytime you deal with a relatively new company, you always worry a little bit about fit and finish, and I see no major issues there. So that's definitely good. And I also, by the way, the inlay, although it's not the most, like there is a little bit of if not gapping, just rounding at the edges of the inlay there. There aren't areas where the inlay has massive gaps or anything like that, which I very much appreciate. That's not nothing. So that's good. Next thing, ergonomically speaking, it's actually quite nice in the hand. It works out well. The clip is done in such a way that it fits in the part of the hand that you want it to. I'm pretty happy with it, ergonomically speaking. And then you've got this part here is a finger guard so you're not going to go sliding and slipping around on it. Is it the best Vaseline factory knife ever? No, but you know what? It'll work just fine. So ergonomically, it's good. And then finally, on the good side, the action on this is very nice. It is not a super clicky detent, if that makes sense. It is more in the tradition of a glassy detent, and a glassy action, generally speaking. It will absolutely, if you give it even a little bit of encouragement there, it'll start to drop shut. It is a smooth action, but it is not like a super, for lack of a better term, clicky. I think a lot of people in the knife world are going to understand exactly what I mean by that, and a lot of people just watching this video are going to be like, what the heck is this guy on? Clicky? That's not even an adjective. What are you doing? But that's okay. Trust me. It's a very good smooth action on this guy. I am actually pretty impressed with this action, and it feels a lot smoother than a lot of what you're seeing in similar price points there. So that's good. And so all of that to me is the good, is that it's got a nice action, good ergos, good fit and finish, nice design, nice blade, and a very good clip. On the great side, this is probably the least expensive use of titanium Damascus on the market here. You'll see little bits of Timascus here and there, a little bit cheaper, right? But this feels like they really made a Timascus knife here. And certainly, most of it is titanium. And it's only inlaid on the one side, but having it on the clip, having it on the back here. And even though it is a very thin part here, you can tell they're definitely trying to be careful with the amount of material they're using. At the same time, this is a knife that is credibly a Timascus knife, and I don't know of anything that's cheaper than that, that's using an amount of Timascus that looks reasonably good. And so definitely on the great side to me is that right here they're using the right kind of, they're using the Damascus well, and they're doing it at a price point that's pretty good. For the carbon fiber one, I would probably have put the action on the great, because it is a pretty good action here. Next thing, on the bad side, the fuller here is definitely collecting a little bit of crud, and by the way, it's not really usable for flicking. If you have like adamantium fingernails, you can get one under there. You could probably flick this out, but I am not able to. So don't look at that hole in the blade and think, oh, I can flick it too. Nope, not enough access there. Next thing, there is, on this guy, there is this very nice inlay on the show side, but on the clip side, there is nothing at all. And I get that they're trying to, keep to a budget here probably, but I always like to see a little bit of matching inlay work on the other side there. This is a really unfair comparison because this knife is going to be substantially more expensive than this, but at the same time, this is the Shot by Design Void by Brian Nadeau, and this is the Knife Nuts Podcast edition with another Timascus inlay here, and you can see here that the inlay matches on both sides. That's the kind of thing I very much like to see here, and the fact that it's missing kind of feels like, oh, well, I guess all the party is in the front here, so it's business in the back. It's a reverse mullet. Okay, whatever. But anyways, so I definitely am. And then the other thing I'll highlight here is that the Timascus looks pretty good, but there are definitely other more attractive patterns out there. I mean, if we look at these two materials, one of them feels a little bit more jewelry grade than the other one. So, and that's a silly thing to say, but at another level, when you're buying something purely based on aesthetics, you kind of want that to be the case. And so, I think as the Timascus supply that they get there improves, the knife will improve, and it's not bad already, but it's definitely, it doesn't feel like the same kind of quality of like super poppin' Timascus that we're used to in a lot of pieces over there. Next thing, weight-wise, this is not a particularly lightweight knife. Drop this down on the scale here. We are coming in at 4.14 ounces for 3.5 inches of blade. Not a lightweight knife. And actually, one thing to note is that there is no internal pocketing on this. And given there's some external pocketing, but they fill it with titanium, so it doesn't really count. So I'd like to see a little bit of pocketing in there. And that would also make the balance just a little, although the balance on this guy isn't bad, but it would shift it a little bit further front and just make this guy feel a little bit, tighter and such. Then, next thing, the knife definitely has a pocket peck and flipper tab here. This is going to be packing on whatever's in your pocket all day long, and so you have to really appreciate that. That's a thing. And then finally, on the bad side, I feel like Kansept they've made a $300 knife here, but I'm not quite sure that they've adapted their sensibilities to the higher end. What I mean by that is that the logo is just kind of put someplace, like, okay, let's land it here. Then you've got a model number here, which absolutely didn't need to be there, especially given that you've written the model on there as well. And yeah, steel marking is great, and that's subtle, but this could have been way classier with the logo strategically placed, over here something, and then the blade completely naked otherwise. I think that would have made the piece a lot classier. Similarly, the lack of internal milling, similarly the S35VN. It's just not that impressive. If you're going at 300 bucks, S35VN, look, it's a great steal. I'm not going to sit here and tell you S35VN is a bad steal, but as you're going up and up in price, you need to start thinking about going higher end. Something like M390, S90V, that kind of thing. Vanax, if we're lucky. Look, there are lots of higher end steals, but as you're going towards 300 bucks, you're going to want to start stepping up the game in that way as well. So I guess my all of that ties together to this is Kansept fielding a fancier knife, but they're not quite natively doing fancy yet. I think it'll be a little while before they get to the point where they really have nailed the fancier aesthetic. This feels very much like a budget knife company making a high-end piece, and I think they'll need to do this a couple of more times before they get the feeling of like, okay, this is high-end now. We should really be classing the joint up a little bit. So, to me at least, that's what's bad, is that there are a couple of things that make this feel like a budget knife that's gotten expensive. It has a bit of a pocket pecker. It's not super light. I prefer some inlaying on the clip side as well, and the fuller is going to collect crud without being useful for flick it. Nothing ugly here, so let's go to the final conclusion. This is a piece that kind of raised my eyebrows. At some level, it was like, oh, wow, Kansept is kind of pushing the envelope here. Because it is a substantially nice piece. It's got a good clip, it's got a nice blade, a good design, good fit and finish, good ergos, classy action, and a touch of high-end material at a pretty mid-range price. Not that 300 bucks is cheap, but for the knife world, for Timascus world, that's pretty cheap. The fuller isn't super useful. The inlaying isn't perfect. With the material, the weight's a little higher than expected. It's definitely pocket packing, and it still has the feelings of a budget knife, even if it's higher end in the price there. But I think it's a really good piece for Kansept, because it's very, very hard right now in 2020 for new brands to differentiate themselves, especially when there is a brand new Chinese OEM trying to break into the U.S. knife market each month. It feels very repetitive. So much like, okay, well, is this knife different from everything else I've seen before? I guess. Or wow, another flipper frame lock in titanium, an S35VN in the $100 to $200 range. Shocking. All of those things can add up to just like, why was this done? Why is this company doing things? What's different here? What's interesting? But this stands out. This is giving them both a nice design, a nice action, and nicer materials, and doing it well. This is a knife that I think makes Kansept look very, very good. It makes them attractive, right? It's going to feel like, for a lot of people, like, I wasn't really paying attention, but now maybe I should pay attention here. This is how you get recognized. They're showing off here. It's showing that they can step up, that they can drop a nice in-house design and do the inlay work right, that they can do a nice action, and that they're able to do this for an amount of money that I'm not going to sit here and tell you that 300 bucks is a value for a pocket knife, because, dude, the 300 bucks value, those don't belong in the same sentence. But this is definitely a value for the kind of higher-end Timascus piece that we're looking at here. This is them absolutely showing off. And of course, it's not the case that every knife that they do needs to be higher-end. I'm not sitting here saying, Kansept, just go high, because there were a lot of companies going high, but at the same time, having that flexibility, having the ability to go higher rather than just producing more flipper frame locks, or God help us, G10 liner locks in D2 steel. The ability to go higher is going to be one of the things that differentiates them. And it's useful for people to see something like this. So I think this particular knife is very good. It's maybe an evolution away from being gem. With a couple of changes, this could go over the line. Just calm down the writing, etc. But as it stands, it's a very, very nice piece. It's a nice way for Kansept to stand out among this flood of budget-focused Chinese makers. And if you're looking for higher-end aesthetics and materials at a lower part of the price spectrum, then honestly, I think you might find this one a pretty compelling concept. Okay, anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, that I was able to conceptually organize this review in a good way, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.